Hello, and welcome to another episode of Opening the Package, Toy Collecting with Ian Brazy Cannon. I'm back. I'm trying to get a few episodes in, see if we can't get some stuff started again with this. So, in this episode, I want to talk about the big movie of last year, Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, it's interesting to me to look at how merchandising happens for toys now. Because back when I was a kid, merchandising was huge. You know, everyone knows Star Wars, which is really the line that set the standard for merchandising. And it was everywhere, figures like crazy. And for a while, that's what everyone tried to do. In the 90s, it started to die down. Now, it gets really weird at how they go about doing the merchandising. Guardians of the Galaxy, admittedly, yeah, no one expected it to be a hit, but at the same time, the merchandising for it wasn't what we normally see. Now, before the movie came out, they did do figures because Guardians of the Galaxy isn't Marvel comic books, and they did them based off their comic book style. This is Star-Lord from the comic books. Basically, when they started up the new Guardians of the Galaxy comics, they kind of had a uniform to them. And you can see that there, and I also have Rocket from that series, which if you look, you know, the two of them definitely look like they're part of the same unit. And so that comic book series came out. It was right after... basically, the team was formed after an event called Annihilation Conquest, which actually is the first time many of these characters met that ended up becoming the Guardians of the Galaxy. And, you know, Rocket was not a very well-known character by then. He had been a minor character throughout. So, you know, here he is being used and suddenly becomes popular. This figure is a bit disappointing in how limited it is with its posability. The arms are always stuck off to the side. You have to move the tail down to balance. But I think that's a hard thing. I'll show you with another Rocket. There's a lot of issues with them trying to produce a good Rocket figure so far. And you can tell that it's very hard for them to do because all of them have these limits to them. But it's good detail, and it's a fun little figure. The Rocket also came with what would now be called a baby Groot, but it's basically a potted Groot, whatever you want to call it, because it looks like a full Groot in a pot. Because, you know, this did happen in the comics, and so they figured follow up a toy. Of course, you have the other one they did was Drax. And if you look at Drax, he's a fairly basic looks, you know, he could fit in with almost fairly well with his movie version. Admittedly, the tattoos aren't quite as elaborate and crazy, but you can definitely see his style there still. So these were ones that were done before the movie, based on the comic books. They weren't very sought after. The Guardians, you know, had a following, but wasn't huge. You know, the original, the first series got canceled, and then the new series started up shortly before they decided to do the movie. So, you know, these figures are probably not ones most of the movie fans are going to be after, because these aren't the movie characters, you know. But these are still fun to have. Now, of course, they did the movie characters. Now, what was disappointing to me is the main promotion, the main merchandising figures they did were this style. Limited posability, they're smaller in scale, and honestly, they're kind of boring. They all came with missile launchers. I personally am not a big fan of putting missile launchers in everything. In this line, you had a missile launcher in every set. Most of the time, they didn't make sense, which is one of my problems with missile launchers. Most of the time, they don't make sense. If you're going to have them, make them fit, make them make sense. Don't make them overly bizarre. But that's what they did. This is so far the only one that I picked up, got it marked down, just to have it. I haven't opened it yet. Thing is, if you look at what Hasbro's doing, this is the same thing they did with Avengers Age of Ultron. So this is what they're figuring is the scale to go with for a cheaper price point, mass market set of action figures. I'm not really into them, but it is the best way to get all the characters for cheap. So there is that. Now the other way they did them, and this was the cool way, is part of their Legends series. Now, see, Marvel Legends. Now these series are larger figures, very highly detailed, and normally they have a Build-A-Figure thing to them. Obviously, this is a package for Star-Lord. And here is the actual figure. Very nicely detailed. Very awesome looking. You know, really well done. Stands up and poses. Now, if you look here, it also came with an alternate head, his headphones, the Walkman, and the sphere that the Infinity Gem was in. So I don't use all the smaller pieces because I put this on display. It falls over. These are the stuff that gets lost, so I keep them in the package because I want to keep them. But he was a very well done figure, and he was probably, from what I understand from case quantities, he was the most common figure in the cases, which fit in the fact that, you know, he was the main character in the movie, and he's probably the one most kids are going to want. The only problem with the Legends series is these are higher price point series. They only go for $20 to $25 on the retail market. So, you know, a bit pricey for kids to have. That's why you have these as well. And of course, I think every single one of these had a Star-Lord. You know, he was the most common one in these 2-packs. So Star-Lord was the most common. He was the easiest to find. The other easiest to find is the one that a lot of people probably don't think makes any sense. And you'd have to be a comic book fan to understand it. And that is Iron Man. Yes, Iron Man, it was in the comics for a very short time a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, I just dropped his shoulder armor, but you see the other one. This is not a very well done Iron Man. It's not impressive, not interesting, doesn't draw you into getting the figure. In fact, I would not have bought this figure if it wasn't for the fact I wanted Groot. Because with the Build-A-Figure stuff, like it says right here, Build-A-Figure, you have to buy all the figures in order to get Groot. Because each one comes with a different piece to Groot. And Groot is cool. In fact, he's the one I will finish up with. So, regretfully, in a set like this, you sometimes get figures like the Iron Man that no one wants. So he was real easy to find because no one wanted him. In fact, I got mine for like half price because, you know, all the others sold well. He was the one that got marked down. The other one that some people might not understand making sense, because a lot of people don't even know who he is Nova. Okay. Nova hasn't really been an official member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's fought alongside them. And him and Star-Lord actually in Annihilation period became real good friends. And so Nova's been a regular, although actually I think as of right now in the comics he may be dead, or lost to another dimension. But he was a regular fighting alongside the Guardians for a while. And that's why it makes sense for his figure to be in here. Even though, if it would have been my call, I would rather have seen Thanos or Nebula done. I'm actually disappointed that Nebula wasn't done in the series. She would have been a perfect one to replace either of these two, preferably Iron Man, obviously. But we didn't need Nova, we didn't need an Iron Man. And there were movie characters that would have been so awesome. I mean, Ronan the Accuser, why didn't we get one of him? That would have made more sense than Nova or Iron Man. But, you know, that would have made sense. But Ronan and Nebula would have worked so much better to have villains, because this set had no villains in it. Very disappointing. But, you know, that's what it did, however, do a really good Gamora figure. And one thing that we need more of in action figures is good female figures. So I was very pleased to see Gamora done this well. She comes with her sword. And looks really good. Great detail, great articulation. A bit funky to balance, but I find quite often the female figures, the way the weight's distributed, makes them harder to stand up on their own. You know, somehow the more bulkier figures, the male figures, balance better than the, you know, thinner female figures. So I have had problems with Gamora standing up on her own when I put her on display, but she's still a beautiful looking figure, well worth having. Of course, then you have Drax the Destroyer. Once more, very well done. You look at the detail on the tattoos and stuff. What's really cool about him, and I wish I would have done this with Gamora, is his swords actually have a place to go when he's not holding them. Right in his boots. He has two swords, one for each boot, come right out, fit right in his hands. Really cool stuff. Okay, that's the kind of detail that more toys need to have. I love holsters and seats for their weapons because they make sense. It's a way to, it makes it harder to lose those weapons, which is, to me, a big deal. I don't want to lose them. I'd rather have a place to put them where they will be safe and secure. So, Drax was really well done. Likeness-wise, him and Gamora are probably the two best likenesses in this group. They really do look, like who they need to. More so, Star-Lord's human unmasked head, I was a bit disappointed with it, which is one reason why I don't use it. But, he is a very well done figure. So, next you have Rocket. Now, once more, Rocket has, as I was saying, Rocket has some posability issues. His legs are pretty much non-posable. You have to use the tail to balance him right. His arms are fairly posable, and his head's decent, but nothing too extraordinary. The gun is very much fits with what we've seen Rocket's gun in the movie. Now, Rocket comes with the big gun that's used at the end of the movie, which fits in with Drax. So there was crossover, with the design. Rocket comes with a device used by Drax, so that was pretty cool. It is only for one scene. It's still a pretty cool weapon. Now, of course, if you buy all 6 of those figures, you will have the pieces to make Groot. And Groot is awesome. Groot is very much worth it. You look at the detail on him, highly posable, very much what we saw in the movie. He works. And basically this is the only reason to buy the Iron Man figure is in order to have this figure complete, because this is the figure you want complete. He is awesome. And basically, without him, you don't have the complete team from the movie. So, well worth getting. This is the only time I've done this so far for one Legends Build-A-Figure set, and it is primarily because I wanted Groot. There's quite a few of them out now. They're definitely keeping this series alive, which I think is awesome. I just wish they weren't so expensive so I could get more of them, because they have a couple Avengers one and a Spider-Man one I'd love to complete right now, but not in the budget. This series shows both the highs and lows of the way merchandising is being done right now. And, you get great detail, you get a lot of work, but you also get stuff that doesn't make sense. But, they're not necessarily listening to the fans all the time, and that's always a problem with any collecting like this. Like I said, I wanted Nebula. Ronan would have been cool. I can understand why they didn't necessarily do Thanos yet, although Thanos is a Build-A-Figure in the latest Avengers Legends set. So there is a way to get Thanos for this scale. Now, limiting thing in this scale is they haven't tried to do any vehicles, any playsets like that, which almost makes sense. This would be a hard scale to do it in, quite expensive. And so there you have a limiting factor. They're getting quite a few characters out. Although one of the big mistakes I've seen so far is way too many Captain Americas. I think there's 4 or 5 Captain Americas at this scale, and there's so many other figures that would make more sense to have out than just more Captain Americas. But, that's a merchandising issue that comes up. I think we will leave it with there today. I am a fan of Marvel Comics and Guardians of the Galaxy, so, these were ones I was going to pick up. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have comments, suggestions, anything, if you have a toy line you'd love to see me cover, email me at opentpackage@gmail.com. I am very much ready to hear some advice from you guys if you've been enjoying this little videos of mine. If you'd like to see certain toy lines covered, there are a few I don't collect, but I will tell you why if you send me an email asking about them. Other than that, there's a lot of them I'd love to cover, and I'll probably be trying to keep this little series going. Thank you. Bye.